The office clock showed 3:17 p.m. when I shut down my computer. The number felt unreal. I was never the guy who left early. Deadlines, meetings, endless calls. That was my routine. But that day, everything wrapped up faster than expected. My manager canceled the last meeting. The client approved the proposal. And for the first time in months, I had nothing urgent tying me to my desk. I leaned back in my chair and smiled to myself. I'll surprise her, I thought. My wife had been asking me for weeks to come home early just once. You're always tired, she'd say. We barely spend time together. I'd always promise soon next week after this project. Today felt like the perfect chance to prove I meant it. As I walked out of the building, the sun hit my face differently, lighter, warmer. Traffic was unusually kind, as if the universe itself wanted me home sooner. During the drive, my mind wandered to simple things. Her smile when she'd see me early, the way she'd tease me for not calling first, maybe even a quiet cup of tea together before evening. Nothing grand. Just us. That was my biggest mistake, believing in the normalcy of it all. I pulled into our driveway just before 4 p.m. Her car was there, parked the way it always was. Everything looked ordinary. Peaceful even. The house stood still, curtains half drawn, the afternoon sun spilling softly across the front porch. I didn't call out. I wanted it to be a real surprise. The front door was unlocked. That didn't strike me as odd. She often forgot to lock it during the day. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of home wrapped around me. But mixed with it was something else. A cologne. Not mine. I paused. At first, my brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe a guest. Maybe her cousin. Maybe I'm imagining things. I took off my shoes slowly, my movements suddenly cautious, as if sound itself could shatter something fragile in the air. Then I heard laughter. Her laughter. It wasn't the casual laugh she used on the phone or with neighbors. It was lighter, freer, the kind I hadn't heard directed at me in a long time. My chest tightened. The sound came from the living room. Each step toward it felt heavier than the last. My heartbeat grew loud in my ears, drowning out everything else. With every passing second, a strange dread settled deeper inside me. An instinct screaming that I should turn around, walk back out, pretend this moment never happened. But I didn't. I stood at the edge of the hallway and looked in. She was there. My wife. Sitting on the couch. And she wasn't alone. Another man sat close beside her. Far too close. His arm rested casually along the back of the couch, fingers brushing dangerously near her shoulder. She was smiling at him. No, enjoying herself. Her body language told a story my mind wasn't ready to accept. Relaxed. Comfortable. Intimate. For a brief, cruel second, time stopped. I felt like an outsider in my own home, watching a scene I wasn't meant to see. My mind raced, searching desperately for explanations. A misunderstanding. A harmless visit. Maybe I'm seeing this wrong. But the way she leaned toward him, the way her eyes sparkled, it wasn't innocent. Not even close. The man said something I couldn't hear clearly, and she laughed again, touching his arm lightly. That small gesture hit me harder than anything else. It was familiar. Personal. Something she used to do with me. Something she no longer did. I don't remember how long I stood there. Seconds? Minutes. My legs felt numb, as if they no longer belonged to me. My heart pounded so violently I thought they might hear it. Then she looked up. Our eyes met. The color drained from her face instantly. Her smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure shock, followed quickly by fear. She pushed herself away from him so fast it was almost comical. I didn't know you'd be home so early, she stammered. The man turned, confusion flashing across his face as he took me in. He looked uncomfortable now, shifting in his seat, suddenly aware that he was somewhere he didn't belong. I wanted to scream. To ask 1,000 questions at once. Who is he? How long? Why? But no words came out. All I could manage was silence. That silence seemed to stretch endlessly, thick and suffocating. My wife stood up slowly, smoothing her clothes as if that could somehow smooth the moment itself. This isn't what it looks like, she said quickly. The oldest line in the book. I almost laughed, but the sound got stuck somewhere deep in my throat. My chest burned. My hands trembled, and I clenched them into fists just to feel something solid. Then tell me, I finally said, my voice low and unfamiliar even to my own ears. What does it look like? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Words failed her. The man stood up awkwardly, clearing his throat. Maybe I should go, he muttered. I turned my eyes to him for the first time. He couldn't meet my gaze. Yes, I said coldly. You should. He didn't argue. Within moments, he was at the door, grabbing his shoes, avoiding eye contact as if shame could erase his presence. The door shut behind him with a soft click that echoed far louder than it should have. Now it was just the two of us. The woman I married. The woman I trusted. Standing in front of me like a stranger. She tried to speak again, but I raised my hand. Not yet. I needed a moment, to breathe, to think, to stop my world from collapsing entirely. I looked around the room, noticing details I'd ignored before. 2 cups on the table. A plate with half-eaten snacks. Signs of comfort. Of time spent together. How long? I asked quietly. She looked down at the floor. That silence told me more than any confession could. A strange calm washed over me then. Not peace, but numbness. The kind that settles in after a blow you didn't see coming. I realized, standing there in my own living room, that the surprise wasn't me coming home early. The real surprise was discovering that the life I thought I had might never have existed the way I believed. That early return from the office hadn't just changed my afternoon. It had changed everything. The door had closed behind him, but his presence still lingered in the room like a bad smell that refused to fade. Silence filled the house, heavy, uncomfortable, unforgiving. I stood there, staring at my wife, trying to recognize the woman I had shared my life with for years. She avoided my eyes. That hurt more than anything else. I slowly lowered myself onto the chair across from the couch. My legs felt weak, as if the shock had drained all strength from them. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The ticking of the wall clock grew unbearably loud, counting seconds that felt like accusations. Say something, she finally whispered. I looked at her then, really looked at her. Her hair slightly messy, her face pale, eyes glistening with unshed tears. She looked scared, but I couldn't tell if she was scared of losing me or scared of being exposed. What do you want me to say? I asked calmly, though my chest felt like it was being crushed. I come home early, and there's another man sitting in my place, smiling with my wife. She flinched. It's not that simple, she said quickly. You're misunderstanding. I cut her off. Then make it simple. She swallowed hard and sat down on the edge of the couch, keeping a noticeable distance from where he had been sitting just minutes ago. That empty space felt louder than words. He's just a friend, she said. I let out a bitter laugh before I could stop myself. Funny, I replied, because I've seen how you act with friends. And that wasn't it. Her eyes filled with tears now, and one slipped down her cheek. For a second, the old me wanted to reach out, wipe it away, comfort her. But something inside me had changed. A door had opened, one I wasn't ready to face, but couldn't close again. How long? I asked again. She hesitated. That hesitation was my answer. Tell me, I said, my voice firmer this time. A few months, she admitted softly. A few months. The words echoed in my head, replaying themselves over and over. Months of lies. Months of excuses. Months of coming home tired, trusting her completely, never once questioning where she was or who she talked to. While I was working late, I said slowly, while I was trying to give us a better life, you were doing this? She shook her head rapidly. It wasn't about that. You were never around. You were always busy, always exhausted. I felt invisible. Invisible. I stood up suddenly, unable to sit any longer. So you decided to make me disappear completely? That's not fair, she cried. You don't know how lonely I was. Lonely. The word tasted bitter. I thought of all the nights I came home drained, still asking her how her day was. All the plans I postponed for us. All the sacrifices I thought we were making together. I was lonely too, I said quietly. But I didn't invite someone else into our home. She covered her face with her hands, sobbing now. I never meant for you to find out like this. That sentence cut deeper than she realized. So you never meant to tell me? I asked. She didn't answer. That silence was louder than any confession. I walked toward the window, staring outside at the street where life went on as if nothing had changed. Cars passed. Children laughed somewhere in the distance. The world didn't stop, only mine had. Who is he? I asked without turning around. She wiped her tears. Someone who listened, she said weakly. Someone who was there when you weren't. I turned back sharply. Don't do that. Don't turn this into a comparison. I'm just telling you how it happened, she replied, her voice shaking. I nodded slowly. And I'm telling you how it feels. I pointed to the couch. That spot. Do you know how many times I sat there, waiting for you, believing in us? She looked down again. I came home early today, I continued, thinking I'd surprise my wife. Instead, I found out I was the only one still married. She broke down completely then, crying uncontrollably. But something inside me had gone cold. Her tears no longer had the power they once did. I don't know what you want me to do, she said between sobs. I made a mistake. A mistake, I repeated slowly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This was a choice. The room fell silent again. I felt exhausted, emotionally drained in a way I'd never experienced before. The anger, the pain, the betrayal all mixed into something heavier, disappointment. I need time, I finally said. She looked up, panic flashing across her face. Time for what? To think, I replied. To breathe. To understand who I'm living with. Are you leaving? She asked, her voice barely audible. I paused at the doorway, my hand resting against the wall. I didn't know the answer to that question. Everything felt uncertain now, our past, our present, our future. I don't know, I said honestly. But things won't ever be the same. I walked out of the room and into the bedroom, closing the door behind me. Not to lock her out, but to protect what little was left of me. As I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, one thought repeated itself in my mind. Coming home early hadn't just opened the front door. It had opened the truth, and I wasn't sure I could survive what was on the other side. The bedroom felt unfamiliar, like I had walked into a place that no longer belonged to me. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall, listening to the muffled sounds of my wife crying in the other room. Each sob felt like a reminder of what we had lost, of what she had chosen. I wanted to feel anger. I expected rage. But instead, there was a hollow ache, deep and constant, like something vital had been removed from my chest. After a while, the crying stopped. That silence was worse. I stood up slowly and walked toward the mirror. The man staring back at me looked older somehow. Tired. Broken in a way no amount of sleep could fix. I wondered when this had happened, when I had turned into someone who could be replaced so easily. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message. For a moment, I hesitated. Some instinct warned me not to look, as if knowing more would only hurt. But I had already crossed that line. There was no going back now. The message wasn't from her. It was from an unknown number. I'm sorry you had to find out like this. My hands started shaking. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. There was no need to ask who it was from. I knew. How did he get my number? How long had this been going on? What else didn't I know? Before I could stop myself, I typed back. How long? The reply came almost instantly. Longer than she told you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I sank onto the bed, the phone slipping from my fingers. Longer than a few months. Longer than excuses. Longer than lies I was already struggling to process. I picked the phone up again. Don't contact me again, I typed. There was a pause this time. Then, you deserve the truth. Ask her about the nights you were on late shifts. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Those nights replayed in my head, coming home after midnight exhausted, finding her already asleep. Or at least, pretending to be. The sudden puzzle pieces started to connect, forming a picture I never wanted to see. I walked back into the living room. She was sitting on the couch again, hugging a cushion to her chest, eyes red and swollen. When she saw me, she stiffened. We need to talk, I said. She nodded silently. I held up my phone. He messaged me. Her face went pale. What did he say? She asked quietly. That it's been going on longer than you admitted. Tears welled up in her eyes again, but this time, there was something else too, guilt. Real, undeniable guilt. Is that true? I asked. She looked down and nodded slowly. How long? My voice barely held together. Almost a year, she whispered. A year. An entire year of double lives. Of coming home to me, sharing meals, sharing a bed, while giving pieces of herself to someone else. I felt dizzy. A year, I repeated. Do you have any idea what that means? She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away instinctively. Don't, I said. I was going to end it, she cried. I swear. I just didn't know how. You didn't know how? I snapped. You knew how to lie. You knew how to hide. You just didn't know how to be honest. She broke down again, sobbing into her hands. I paced the room, trying to release the storm inside me without letting it destroy everything. My mind kept flashing back to moments I once considered happy, now poisoned by doubt. Did you love him? I asked suddenly. She froze. That hesitation lasted only a second, but it was enough. I don't know, she said softly. I closed my eyes. That was the moment something inside me truly broke. Love wasn't supposed to be confusing. Loyalty wasn't supposed to be optional. And yet, here we were. I loved you, I said quietly. I still might, but I don't recognize you anymore. She looked up at me, desperation written all over her face. Please don't give up on us. I studied her, the fear, the regret, the tears. I wanted to believe her. God, I really did. But belief required trust, and trust was the one thing she had destroyed completely. I'm not making any promises, I said. Not tonight. I grabbed my jacket and keys. Where are you going? She asked, panic rising in her voice. For a drive, I replied. Before I say something I can't take back. As I stepped outside, the cool evening air hit my face, sharp and sobering. I sat in the car for a long moment before starting the engine. The house behind me no longer felt like home. And for the first time since that early return from the office, I allowed myself to face a terrifying truth. I hadn't just caught my wife in a moment. I had caught our marriage in a lie it might never recover from. Chapter 4. Silence after the shock. The car moved, but my mind stayed behind. Streetlights passed in slow blurs as I drove aimlessly, hands tight on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the road yet seeing nothing. Every few seconds, memories invaded my thoughts. Laughing together in this same car, planning our future, arguing over small things that now felt painfully meaningless. I pulled over near a quiet park and turned the engine off. The silence inside the car was overwhelming. No phone calls. No messages. Just the sound of my own breathing, uneven and heavy. I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. How had it come to this? I replayed every moment of the past year, searching for signs I had missed. The late replies. The sudden secrecy with her phone. The excuses that always seemed reasonable at the time. I had trusted her completely, and that trust had made me blind. My phone buzzed again. This time it was her. Please come back. We need to talk. I stared at the screen for a long time before putting the phone face down. Talking wouldn't change what I had seen. Talking wouldn't erase the image of her smiling with another man on our couch. After a while, I drove back home. Not because I was ready to face her, but because there was nowhere else I belonged. The house was dark when I entered. She had turned off most of the lights, as if darkness could hide the damage. She was sitting at the dining table, hands folded tightly, like someone waiting for a verdict. You're back, she said softly. For now, I replied. We sat across from each other, the distance between us feeling wider than ever. The air was heavy with unspoken words. I ended it, she said suddenly. I looked up. When? After he left, she replied quickly. I told him it was over. I blocked his number. I nodded slowly. You ended it because I caught you. Not because you chose me. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she didn't argue. Maybe because she knew I was right. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she whispered. But I'm asking for a chance. A chance for what? I asked. To pretend this never happened? No, she said. To fix what I broke. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. She looked smaller, somehow fragile. But fragility didn't equal innocence. You didn't just break something, I said calmly. You shattered it. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, sliding it across the table. You can check everything, she said. Messages, calls, anything. I didn't touch it. That won't help, I replied. Trust doesn't come from access. It comes from honesty. She nodded, wiping her tears. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again, I continued. Every smile, every late night, every excuse, I'll wonder if it's real. I'll wait, she said quickly. As long as it takes. I stood up. That's the problem. You waited too, until I wasn't around. The words hurt her. I could see it, but they needed to be said. That night, we slept in separate rooms. The bed felt cold and unfamiliar, like it had rejected me. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the house breathe, wondering if this place could ever feel safe again. In the early morning, I realized something important. The shock had passed. What remained was clarity. Love alone wasn't enough. Apologies weren't enough. Tears weren't enough. Something fundamental had changed. And as I lay there, surrounded by silence, I understood that the hardest part wasn't catching her in the act. The hardest part was deciding what to do after the truth was already out. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. Truths She Couldn't Hide. Morning arrived quietly, without drama or noise, as if the night hadn't torn our lives apart. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, falling across the walls of a house that no longer felt like a home. I opened my eyes slowly, hoping, just for a second, that everything had been a bad dream. It wasn't. The silence reminded me immediately. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening for movement. No footsteps. No kitchen sounds. Nothing. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. When I finally got up, my body felt heavy, like I had aged years overnight. I walked into the bathroom and splashed water on my face, gripping the sink tightly as memories rushed back. Her laugh. His presence. The look on her face when she realized she'd been caught. Some truths don't scream. They settle in slowly and suffocate you. I stepped into the kitchen. She was there, standing by the counter, hands wrapped around a cup of tea she clearly hadn't touched. She looked up when she saw me, eyes filled with caution, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "Good morning," she said softly. I didn't respond. The silence between us stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, I sat down across from her. "We need to talk," I said. She nodded immediately. "I know." This time, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't interrupt. I wanted the truth, every ugly detail she had hidden for so long. "Start from the beginning," I said. "No excuses. No blaming me. Just the truth." She swallowed hard. "It started when you began staying late at the office more often," she said slowly. "At first, it really was just talking. He was someone I met through a friend. He listened. He made me feel noticed. I clenched my jaw but stayed silent. I told myself it was harmless," she continued. "That it wasn't cheating because there was nothing physical at first." "At first," I repeated. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I crossed that line later. And once I did, I couldn't undo it." "How long after?" I asked. "A few weeks," she whispered. I leaned back in my chair, absorbing the weight of her words. Every timeline she revealed carved deeper into me. Each detail confirmed what I had feared, that this wasn't a single mistake, but a series of deliberate choices. "Did you ever plan to stop?" I asked. "Yes," she said quickly. "Many times. But you didn't." She shook her head. "I was scared. Of hurting you. Of losing you." The irony of that statement almost made me laugh. "You were scared of losing me," I said calmly. "So you betrayed me instead?" She looked down, unable to answer. I stood up and walked toward the window, staring outside at a world that still made sense to everyone else. "Did you bring him here often?" I asked without turning around. Her silence answered before her words did. "Yes," she admitted. My hands trembled slightly. "In our home?" I asked. "Yes." I closed my eyes. That was worse than anything else she could have said. This house, the place I believed was sacred, had been turned into a stage for lies. "Did you think of me?" I asked quietly. "When you brought him here? When you sat on that couch? When you laughed?" She broke down completely, crying into her hands. "Every time," she sobbed. And that made it even worse. I turned back to her, anger finally rising. "Then why keep doing it?" "Because I was weak," she said. "Because I didn't want to be alone." Alone. I had never felt more alone than I did in that moment, standing across from my own wife. I sat down again, exhaustion washing over me. "Do you love him?" She hesitated. That pause hurt more than any confession. "I cared about him," she said carefully. "But I loved you." Loved. Past tense or present, I couldn't tell anymore. "Did you ever think of leaving me for him?" I asked. She looked up sharply. "No. Never." I searched her face, trying to find honesty. Maybe it was there. Maybe it wasn't. Trust had become fragile, easily shattered by even the smallest doubt. "Then why risk everything?" I asked. "Because I didn't think I'd get caught," she whispered. There it was. The raw truth she couldn't hide. Not love. Not confusion. Opportunity. I nodded slowly. "Thank you for being honest," I said. Finally, she looked at me with hope in her eyes, mistaking my calm for forgiveness. "I'll do anything," she said quickly. "Therapy. Counseling. I'll quit my job. I'll change my number. I'll prove it to you." I held up my hand. "Stop." She froze. "You don't get to bargain right now," I said. "You don't get to promise your way out of this." Her face crumpled. "I need to know something," I continued. "If I hadn't come home early, would you still be seeing him?" She tried to answer. She really did. But the truth was written all over her face. Yes, I said quietly, answering for her. She nodded, sobbing. That confirmation settled something inside me. It was painful, but it was clear. The rest of the day passed slowly. We moved around each other like strangers sharing the same space. No touching, no small talk, just distance. That evening, I packed a small bag. When she saw it, panic returned to her eyes. You're leaving? For a while, I said. I need space. For how long? I don't know. She reached for me again, desperation replacing pride. Please don't go. I'll lose my mind. I gently removed her hands from my arm. I already lost mine when I walked in yesterday. Tears streamed down her face. Is this the end? I paused at the door. I don't know, I said honestly. But this is the consequence. As I stepped outside, the air felt different. Heavy but honest. For the first time since that early return from the office, I felt something close to control. She stood in the doorway, watching me leave, the woman I loved, the woman who betrayed me. Some truths can't be hidden forever. And some doors, once opened, never close the same way again. Chapter 6. The Choice That Changed Everything. The hotel room smelled like detergent and unfamiliar air. Clean, impersonal, temporary, everything my life felt like now. I dropped my bag by the door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. They looked the same, yet everything they had built felt like it had slipped through my fingers. That first night alone was the hardest. Sleep came in fragments. Every time I closed my eyes, the image returned. Her laughter, his presence, the couch that no longer felt like mine. I woke up before dawn, heart racing, the truth pressing down on me with a weight I couldn't shake. Morning didn't bring clarity. It brought questions. I went for a long walk as the city woke up around me. Coffee shops opened. People rushed to work. Couples laughed. Life continued careless and loud, while I carried a quiet devastation inside my chest. For years, I had believed stability was built on effort, long hours, responsibility, sacrifice. I had believed love could survive neglect as long as the intention was good. Now I wondered if I had misunderstood everything. My phone buzzed. A message from her. I haven't slept. I know I don't deserve anything, but please don't shut me out. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I called the one person I trusted completely, my older brother. He listened without interrupting as I told him everything. When I finished, there was a long pause on the line. You didn't fail, he said finally. You trusted. That's not weakness. I keep thinking I pushed her away, I admitted. That I caused this. Stop, he said firmly. Being busy doesn't justify betrayal. Nothing does. His words grounded me. They didn't erase the pain, but they gave it shape, something I could face instead of drown in. That afternoon, I received another message. This time, it wasn't pleading. It was honest. I'm starting therapy. Not to fix us, just to understand myself. I'm done lying. I stared at the screen for a long time. It was the first message that didn't feel like a trap. That evening, I agreed to meet her. Public place, neutral ground. A quiet cafe we used to visit years ago, before routines replaced romance. She arrived early. She looked different. Smaller. Not physically, emotionally. When she saw me, she didn't rush over or reach for my hand. She waited, respecting the distance I had asked for. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded and sat down. For a moment, we just looked at each other, two people bound by history, separated by truth. I'm not here to convince you of anything, she said. I just want to answer whatever you need to ask. I studied her face. No rehearsed lines. No desperation. Just accountability. Why didn't you stop? I asked. She took a deep breath. Because I was afraid to face what I'd become. Ending it would have forced me to confront myself, and I chose comfort instead. It was the most honest answer she had given me yet. Do you understand what you broke? I asked. Yes, she said softly. And I know I may never fix it. We talked for hours, not about details, but about damage. About loneliness. About choices. About the difference between love and commitment. I still love you, she said at one point. But I'm not asking you to stay. That sentence changed everything. For the first time since that early return from the office, the decision felt like mine again. Days turned into weeks. I stayed away, focusing on myself, work, exercise, long walks that helped clear the fog in my mind. Slowly, the anger softened into something quieter. Not forgiveness. Understanding. Understanding didn't excuse her actions, but it allowed me to breathe. One evening, sitting alone with my thoughts, I asked myself the hardest question of all. Can I live with what happened? Not forget it. Not pretend it didn't hurt. But live with it. The answer surprised me. Yes. But only if things changed completely. I went back to the house one last time. Not to move back in, but to talk. She stood across from me, waiting, no expectations in her eyes. I'm not choosing the past, I said. And I'm not choosing comfort. She nodded, bracing herself. I'm choosing honesty, I continued. Whether that means rebuilding slowly or walking away with dignity. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't interrupt. If we try, I said, it will be on new terms. Transparency, boundaries, counseling, and the understanding that trust may never fully return. And if you decide to leave, she asked, then we accept that love alone isn't always enough. She nodded. I accept whatever you choose. I looked around the living room. The same couch, the same walls, but a different reality. The house didn't feel healed, but it felt honest. I'm willing to try, I said finally. Not because I'm afraid to be alone, but because I believe people can change when they stop lying to themselves. She broke down then, not in relief, but in gratitude. We didn't hug. We didn't celebrate. We simply acknowledged the weight of the road ahead. That night, as I left the house again, not permanently, but intentionally, I felt something I hadn't felt since before everything shattered. Agency. I hadn't come home early to catch betrayal. I had come home early to face the truth. And the choice I made afterward, the choice to walk forward with open eyes, whether together or apart, was the one that truly changed everything.